Hey guys, welcome. Today I'd actually I have a brand new machine and I would like to go ahead and set it up so that I can run Angular on it. And I thought this would be a good time to create a video that will kind of go through the steps of creating or setting up the environment to run Angular. And I'm kind of just creating a presentation, and it's good. This video is basically good for somebody who's just getting started with Angular. They need to set up the environment to be able to write the code. Somebody who's a .NET developer, they're kind of wanting to get more into Angular. It's just a very basic, and I'm going to follow with some other videos of like developing maybe a simple application in Angular. So in this video, all I'll do is just set up the environment to be able to run Angular. Okay, so I created like a presentation. So preparing for Angular, getting your machine ready for Angular development. Angular IDE. So Angular doesn't really have IDE in the same sense that Microsoft has it with the Visual Studio. So with Visual Studio, basically what happens is that developer will install Visual Studio. This will bring all the tools and it will install all the background things that are needed to run this, such as .NET Framework, runtimes for .NET Framework, common language runtime. With Angular, they really haven't officially developed anything like that, which I think it's a little bit of a mistake, but that's the way it is. It is possible to develop Angular with Visual Studio, but it's not recommended. Nobody really does it like that much. So in order to start developing in Angular, we need to prepare our own environment, install some tools, install Node, Git, and we typically use Visual Studio Code to develop Angular, which Visual Studio Code is not the same as Visual Studio. It's completely different. So Node.js, or simply Node, I mean, what is that? It's like for one thing, we do need Node installed on our machine in order to work with developing the Angular. All the modern way of development of Angular is done through the Node. So Node is a runtime environment. It's runtime environment for executing JavaScript code, but in a nutshell, basically it's a runtime environment. Then when we write our program, it runs inside of this runtime environment. By definition, is an open source cross-platform runtime environment for executing JavaScript code. So what is a runtime environment? So in plain English, it's basically a piece of software that you install on your Windows machine that allows you to execute the program that's written for that environment. In our case, Node is that runtime environment. So Angular doesn't run directly on Windows, it runs inside of this runtime environment called Node. And if you're familiar with .NET, .NET program doesn't run directly on Windows. It runs inside a common language runtime, which is part of .NET Framework, which is also a separate piece of software that runs on Windows. And I would like to mention that Java was the first one to sort of go down this route with their Java Virtual Machine. So first two things that we need to install, which are two major things that we need for developing with Angular, is Git for Windows and Node. Now we don't just install Node directly, we use NVM, which is a Node version manager for Windows, and these are the links for both of these things. So what I'll do first, I'll go ahead and install Git for Windows, and I'll kind of walk you through the steps. Okay, so if you open this link, gitforwindows.org, we get Git for Windows version 2.27.0. There's a simple download button here. Everything looks pretty clean. And here we're starting to download the executable. And once it's downloaded, you can see it says it has open file. This is actually I'm using Bing instead of Chrome. I just wanted to give it a shot. And let's click open file here. So here basically what we'll do is we'll just use all the default settings to install our Git for Windows. So just kind of click next through all these, and at the end we'll just click finish to install. So just launch Git Bash, which is a utility shell that comes when we install our Git for Windows. So you can just click on that and click next, and it opens up our shell here. This is our Git Bash. And the next thing is going to be installing the NVM, which we'll use to install Node. And for that we go to this address, github.com Cory Butler NVM-Windows. And then we scroll down and click on this download now, and this shows us latest version 1.1.7. And then we go to NVM setup link, which is our download link. And once it's downloaded, click on the executable to set it up, agree, and install. And basically that is the installation. Okay, so we installed the GitHub. We installed, or actually Git for Windows, we installed the NVM, and let's take a look at the NVM to see how do we know that that's installed. So what we do is we go to that Git Bash. So I opened the Git Bash as an admin, and I just type NVM and hit enter, and it gives me some commands. Okay, so NVM install, I typed in 14.5.0, so it downloaded, which took a little while, and then it also installed npm, which is a different thing. It's a Node package manager. This, we're going to cover this a little more in other videos, but so installation is complete. So it says if you want to use this version, type nvm use 14.5.0, nvm use 14.5.0. So now using Node version 14.5.0, Now to check, we can do node, and it says version 14.5.0. So basically what we did is we installed the GitHub and we installed Node on our machine now. So our machine is now ready to, it's enabled now to be able to develop with Angular. To summarize, what we did is we wanted to set up our brand new machine to work with, be able for us to work with Angular. So we installed Git and Node. We covered what it is. Git is used to manage source code, and Node is a runtime environment. And then we worked with the Git Bash, which is a command shell. And also we didn't just install one version of Node, we installed NVM, which let us switch between different versions of Node as we need to.